welcome to Relentless Mentality. I'm your host, Justin Bayless. I'm here with Lynne King Smith, a good friend of mine. And welcome to the show, Lynne.
Thank you.
Yes. Relentless, commonly defined as oppressively constant, determined, showing no abatement of severity, intensity, strength, or pace. I believe relentless is an ethos. You're not stopping until you get what you want. You're not taking no for an answer. No obstacle will deter you from your goals. Relentless mentality is where we get to tap into the mindset of change agents, leaders, and icons. My hope is that their stories will inspire and motivate others to transform their mentality in their profession, their personal life, and ultimately their communities. So remember, when it's tough, will you give up or will you be relentless? Former U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice said, "The truth of the matter is people end up as first don't actually set out to be first. They set out to do something they love, and it just so happens that they are the first to do it." And I think some of that we'll hear today with Lynne's story. So a quick introduction. So Lynne is a unbelievable entrepreneur, but she is the CEO of TicketForce, founder of Thrive Coworking for women, and the principal of Building 313, which I like to call her the informal mayor of Gilbert, Arizona.
That's awesome.
You've received the Most Influential Woman in Arizona Award, the Arizona Most Admired Leaders Award from Phoenix Business Journal. And I think one of the things I really appreciate about you is that you're never afraid to speak up for women in business.
It's actually, in my bio, right?
Yeah, I mean, you are, in our Vistage group, I think you have always brought a different viewpoint to the organization about how we need to view things differently about women in business and making sure people understand that. And so I really appreciate how you bring that to the forefront,
Thank
especially
you.
in today. And I know you and I have had several conversations about some of the injustices in general, but
Right.
I appreciate that about you. So
Thanks.
but I also know the most important thing to you is your passion for your 3 daughters and your husband.
That's
and
true.
how you guys all, some of you work together and build together. So real quick,
Yes.
how about you give us a background of where you're from
Okay.
and kind of your family story and what brought you to Arizona?
I always sort of thought I had a boring family story because it wasn't dramatic, and it was just really normal and good. And I felt like everybody always had these stories of troubles and things that they went through and trauma. None of that.
Okay.
So Midwest family,
Yeah.
born in Peoria, Illinois. My parents are still married, both still living. Really didn't experience death or trauma or injury or anything like that.
What was their profession?
My dad was a minister,
Okay.
and my mom just kind of did whatever you do as a minister's wife.
Yeah.
And he changed positions quite a bit. He got into business a little bit because he kind of had to do some little mission churches and work on the side.
Okay.
He built a house, so my love of building things comes actually from his dad, and his dad, it's like 4 generations deep. So I'm not hands-on, but like what I did with Building 313, I feel like I just love
Okay.
buildings. And I
Yeah.
think that comes right through the King line.
Yeah.
So I love that. And
Okay.
my dad built a house that we lived in, and we all kind of got to help that.
Wow.
Later in life was cool.
Yeah.
So that's what he did.
Okay.
I'm the youngest of 4. Of interest, perhaps, is that my brother next to me works for me. And kind of an unusual relationship to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So we love it. It's pretty special.
Yeah. And so what brought you to Arizona?
My husband. So
Okay.
his family moved here. He was from upstate New York, and his family moved out here, I think in the 70s when everybody was kind of migrating and you could get cheap housing and all that. And then he ended up going back to upstate New York to go to school, which is where I went to school. So we met there.
Okay.
And we would come out and visit his family when we lived in freezing cold, cloudy Rochester, New York. We'd come out here and it was sunny and amazing. And it just clicked for us. One time we just said, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
So we literally moved out here for the weather.
Okay.
So
And what was, and I know you two work together now, and he's a big part of TicketForce with you. And so, what did you guys do when you first moved out here to Arizona? And I know you have your 3 girls, and
Right.
so how did you manage, raising 3 girls and being a mom and
all of that.
Yeah.
We were super young. Like, I wouldn't recommend what we did to anyone. And my kids are already past following in my footsteps. We got married at 19 and 20. We had the first child at 23, one at 25, and one at 30. So we were just kind of floundering through trying to figure out a way to make ends meet, and really were just working to live, basically. Not a ton of purpose, just trying to get by. And we didn't start TicketForce till we were 40.
Wow.
So that's what we did between 40 and 50, really, was build that company while we had kids around. So I stayed home with my kids for probably 10 years, I think. So. Wow. I teach music. I'm a piano teacher, did all that kind of stuff to add to a little bit of cash that you could have when you're raising your family. And I had a partial liberal arts degree with music, and I decided once I got back into working, I wanted to get my business degree. So I got back into work, got my degree with evening classes, all while I had kids in that kind of elementary school age where it's baths and homework and all of that, feeding, dinner, that whole thing.
That's unbelievable.
It was nuts.
We have the 8-month-old, so I'm learning all of this right now, and that's just unbelievable. So I see my wife doing, she's in nursing school and being a mom, and we're trying to figure this out, to do that with 3 kids and also be in a new environment. That's pretty relentless in its own nature.
It was pretty relentless. I never really thought about it until this moment.
With your family in Peoria, Illinois, it sounds like your dad was a hard worker. Is that where you get your work ethic from, and were able to, pull from that, or where do you think you have that inspiration?
I've thought about that, and yeah, absolutely, he worked hard. You have Midwest, just good hardworking ethics that the Midwest is known for. But I kind of looked for where I got my entrepreneurial. Like, where did this come from? Yeah. Because he's always asking me, like, how do you know what you're doing? Yeah. How did you do this? And I looked back a couple generations back, and his mom, her husband was a traveling minister, my grandpa, and didn't really make any money doing that. And she pretty much raised the family on her own. And then I found out she started a floral shop that's still there in a little town in Illinois. She raised chickens. She bred Pekingese dogs. I mean, she just did all this stuff, but it was all entrepreneurial. Yeah. And so I really look at Anna King and say, I think that's really where the entrepreneurial fearlessness comes from.
So I've had some conversations with others on the show about, whether or not it's genetic or it's learned or it's a mixture of both.
Who knows, right?
What do you think?
I have to say genetic to some degree, because I feel like if you don't say that, you can just tell everybody else, if they work as hard as I did, you'll be where I am. And I don't know that that's always true. I don't know everybody. Why is it different than being a professional basketball player? Yeah. Yeah. If I'm 5'6", it's not happening. Yeah. So, Yeah,
and I think, also there's always a point in time, an inflection point. So it sounds like you were extremely busy with being a mom and piano teaching and doing some other things. And then one day you had the switch. So what was that? What was it when you said, I want to start TicketForce? And when did you have that switch and just the idea came, and you guys decided to band together and figure out how to start this company?
It's a little before TicketForce. Okay. I have this mental image that is a memory. I'm pretty sure it happened this way, where I felt like I was ready to get back into work and not just have one income anymore and supplementing that. So my youngest was just about 4. The other girls were in school. I'm like, we got it. We're just done. Yeah. And so I started applying for jobs, and this was in the 90s when, Windows had come out and work was a lot different than it was. And I really didn't know what I was qualified to do, and I was incredibly scared. Yeah. And I took this interview. The first interview I took was at a software company. And I think it was receptionist, something entry level. And I remember sitting in my minivan in the parking lot.
The mom van.
The mom van. Yep. And I'm sitting there, and I opened the door, and I swung my leg out to put it down, and I pulled it back in. And I sat there, and I thought, I can't do this. I have no idea what this world is that these people are living in. Well, I've been raising kids and teaching music for 10 years. And incredibly fearful of computers. Didn't know. I mean, I just had no clue. Yeah. And I feel like I put my foot out more than once and put it back in the van. And I finally just said, I just found the strength and said, get in there. I just remember saying, just get in there. This is just one interview. Yeah. And put my foot down and took the step. And I got that job. It was the first interview I'd had. It was in software, and it really put me on the right path to where I am today. It's an amazing series of what happened in that job and through that job. That it was. I'm going to go with it. It was probably about 10 years later then that we started TicketForce.
Okay. So do you have any mentors that helped you during that 10 years when you going through TicketForce?
Yeah, and we didn't talk about it so much in that way, but I locked onto the CEO somehow and just watched him. His name's Rick Munson. I'm still friends with him on Facebook. And I thought, this is not what I thought CEOs were like. He was personable. He went around and talked to every person, about 100 people in the company at the time. He'd come in the morning, knew everybody's name. He talked to everyone. He was pleasant. And they just had a lot of policies way before you talked about culture, way before it was cool, that they did that just were awesome. And I remember thinking, wow, if I ever had the opportunity to be somebody's boss, I would want to be like Rick.
Wow.
And it would be cool. I'll post this on Facebook and
Rick,
tag him.
You need to hear this, Rick.
Please. And I've let him know that before. It was amazing. And so he didn't come and mentor me. We didn't really call it that, but I watched and listened and learned. And then I had a guy, again, I'm still friends with him, so that job was so key. His name was Shazad, and he was there to do some tech things or something. And when he got hired there, they didn't give him a place to desk. I don't know what happened, but he didn't even know where the supply closet was. So I befriended him, helped him out. And as a return, he started showing me, he goes, you got some extra time on your hands. You should really learn about the intranet. Do you know what the intranet is? I'm like, no. I don't know if you know what intranets, if you guys, they're like internal internets. Yeah. And he said, you really should learn. I'm like, why? And he's like, no, it's really cool. Look, you could post some of the stuff that you're doing. Instead of emailing it out, you could post it on the intranet. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. And he taught me a lot about tech. I was a receptionist answering the phones. And so without knowing it, he mentored me. So thank you, Susan.
Wow.
Still friends.
So 10 years.
Yes.
And then how did TicketForce come about?
Desperation. So I did a lot of marketing. I get into marketing from that job. And TicketForce actually came about because of something that Brad started, who's my husband and business partner. Remember, he was also in ministry. I don't know if we said that. He's a youth pastor, youth minister. And he started a network in Arizona of youth ministries and youth pastors. And these guys are sometimes some of the worst equipped people that and then we put our kids under them. We say, here, go learn from the young kid. And so he started this network, and it just grew because he's an entrepreneur. And he called that Youth Force. And it was just, we ran conferences and those, but he always had to pull me in. He had the idea, and then he'd be like, I don't know what to do now. So you need to come run this for me. And so I helped him out a lot with that while I was working in these other marketing jobs, learning stuff. And so we ended up with this huge mailing database. There's a point to this. We had a big mailing database, and it was before email, and concert promoters, this is the TicketForce link, would come into town and say, can you help me promote this? So we started doing concert promotions, and then they'd start asking us to do at-the-door ticketing. Can you provide security? Can you book the ads? All these pieces to live events that they wanted somebody local to do. So we learned that from the ground up. And again, I was doing a good part of this. And out of that, finally, somebody said, can you get tickets online for us? And I was working at a media agency. I came home, and he literally said, I sort of started a ticketing company today. And I'm like, what did you do now? And that just meant he got he bought a web domain, and he set up a toll-free number, and we actually sold our first event, but I was responsible to he's like, I got to find some software, in 3 weeks to get this online. So that's what we did. Wow. And we kind of worked it as it was set up as a DBA of Youth Force for a few years. And it was just kind of entrepreneurially feeding this nonprofit.
So from one event, what was I know you know this, the first event, how many tickets did you sell?
7,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so last year, how many tickets did you guys sell?
That's a fun comparison to make. Over 3 million.
Wow. So, and literally starting it out of your house, right, to now this beautiful building in downtown.
We were in Arcadia, actually.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In the neighborhood.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay. So during that time period, so I know you talked about the fear of going back into the workforce.
Right.
What about when you and your husband as business partners? First of all, I would love to talk a little bit about the relationship and how you separated being husband and wife and being business partners. But what was the first time that you were really, as an entrepreneur, like, we don't know what we're going to do with this, and had the fear factor hit you guys in your TicketForce company?
Day one and every day thereafter.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, there's very few days that you don't sort of have that sort of
Lingering.
doubt or fear. It's just lingering,
Yeah.
you know. But definitely in the beginning, I maybe we didn't know because we were kind of doing it. We supplemented. I was writing. We had all kinds of side jobs we were doing. So we didn't go in there and go, oh, we got to pay ourselves a salary the first day. So when we really got focused and did the business plan and all of that, you know, we just thought it was going to be fantastic. I think we were a little bit afraid because the W-2 was gone, you know.
Yeah.
So you just had to kind of figure out what you were doing with revenue, and you had 3 kids.
Yeah.
You know, when you're 40, you're in the thick of it with like a high school, a junior high, and a bratty little elementary school kid.
Yeah.
And it's like, my God, let's start a company. That'll be great.
Wow.
You know, but
Most people don't take that risk at that type of stage. That's
it was weird, right?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And it really was just a matter of it was sort of handed to you. You know, there was this opportunity there, and we looked at it, we wrote the business plan, and we're like, wow, I think this is a niche that we can fill. Changed a lot. We were going to only be Arizona.
Yeah.
And we worked in that gospel Christian concert arena because that's where we had those contacts. Well, we did shows at Mesa Amphitheater, Celebrity, all those shows, but there was that one niche. So that's what we thought we were going to be at the time. Now we're all 50 states, Canada, and every market you can imagine.
Wow.
So we start off with a really small vision.
Wow. So let's talk about you and Brett. I know Brad.
Yeah.
I think you guys are an unbelievable couple. I enjoy hanging out
Thank
with you guys.
you. Thank you.
I can see like with your success now and working with your kids and your daughter, and everybody's doing well. Like
Incredibly
I
lucky.
can see it. And
We're
so
really, really lucky.
So how along the journey, how has it been? What's been the most difficult? How have you been able to separate it? You know, can you talk a little bit about that?
I can. People think we're nuts, you know, but I did, as you heard in the other stories, we had worked together previously, and we're incredibly different. We're Leo Scorpio. We're not even supposed to be in the same room.
Yeah.
And so we operate absolutely anti of each other. But he says, if you're both the same, one of you is unnecessary. So it's really good business partnership in that way. But sometimes the hair can fly, you know, fur can fly, whatever you call it. So how we separate is by definition of roles. So in the beginning, he started the company with me along. It was like he was sort of entrepreneur and I was making it work. So it was really chief executive, chief operating, if you had titles. Yeah. And so I ran the business and he fueled and grew the business. And so we did that for a long time. And towards the end of 2009, he came to me and he said, you need to take the helm. And I said, what are you talking about? I'm just running the company. I know how to do processes. He says, I can't take it any farther. I'm an entrepreneur and I have no idea what to do with it, how to grow it past what we're doing. And you have vision, you know how to get people on board. I can't do any of that. Please take it. And it was a remarkable day in our life, our marriage, all of that. So the beginning of 2010, we didn't switch roles, but he went straight into just business development. And he's an amazing sales rep, if you want to call it that. He develops new business. He's great at it. And he handed me the role as CEO. And I said, are you sure? Because I'm going to take it seriously.
Yeah.
And the first year, 2010, was just after really the market crash, was the end of 2008. So it was only a year after that. I hadn't really hit entertainment yet. I came in and I said, we're cutting your trade show budget. It was about $80,000 a year. Was his baby. And I was looking for ways to save our jobs and make sure that we didn't lose our company in 2010 because we knew things were going to start to hit. Yeah. And cut his budget right away. He had a midlife crisis in 2010 to some sort. So I sent him to California for a month, like 7 months down the road. He was lost. He didn't really know, like, what do I want to do? And so I said, go out there on the beach. And one of his dad's best friends is a counselor out there. I said, talk to Tom. And if you come back and go, I want out of here, then we'll figure it out. And that's okay. And that was an amazing time because he came back and we changed the schedule up a little bit and he eased back in and he's still loving it to this point. He's like, no, he came back really slowly refreshed and got through that. So that was an incredibly difficult decision to make and it left him sort of lost because I don't know about you, but job is identity for him. Yeah. It's what I do. You know, I'm a wife and a mom and a friend, but I do a job. And in his situation, the job identifies who he is.
Yeah.
So for him, when he lost that, he really didn't know.
I really hope your girls are watching this. I shouldn't say your girls. Your kids are
I call them
watching
girls.
this. Yeah,
That's
you know,
fine. Yeah.
because I think they should really respect what you guys have done, not only for them, but just as role models, as two parents who have been able to weather the storm of growing a business together and the relationship in life and come out of it so strong. I think that's amazing, and I really hope they appreciate that and they know.
I feel they do now. You know, in 2010, they were just like, "What's going on?
Yeah.
You know, you guys are screwed up, and you don't know what's happening, and what's Dad doing, and you know,
Yeah.
but they were much younger.
Yeah.
And now that they're 32, 30, and 25.
Okay.
So they see it now, and they definitely recognize, and they're able to look back at that time.
Okay.
In fact, we were just talking about it with two of them the other night over a beer, which is the best
Yeah.
when you can drink
Yeah.
some beers with your kids. And
I'm a long ways from that, Lynne.
I know, but it comes pretty quickly. But, you know, we were talking about it, and the youngest one said, wait, that was 2010? And Joanna said, yeah, it was. And she said, I can't believe it was that long ago already.
Yeah.
So that was a mark for them as well.
So, okay, so you guys have built TicketForce up, and I know a little bit about how you came up with the idea of really investing in downtown Gilbert. But I want to get into that quickly and then get into some more questions about kind of your mindset. So tell me a little bit about how you guys decided to acquire the piece of land in downtown Gilbert, and then the building, and then the vision for Thrive now, which is now your second business. So
yeah, and kind of third, because the building is one as
Well,
well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't know
of course,
what's
yeah,
two and what's
Yeah,
three,
yeah.
but so we moved into a neighborhood in Gilbert called Irotopia, and it's kind of trying to be like an almost rural live, work, play. And so when we moved out there, they had said, well, there's going to be this opportunity for business owners to own a building and put your office in it if you want to, and then maybe some retail space. And that's really how the idea started. And we said, oh, that'd be awesome. We're going to need an office that's bigger. We were renting at the time. And it just took a long time for that to get off the ground, and it still isn't. So that was back in, I think we moved in the neighborhood in 06.
Okay.
So we went ahead and bought a different office and still kept thinking, well, we're going to do this when they open it up. That'll be super cool. Well, as it does with entrepreneurs, the idea just grew and grew and grew.
Okay.
So we're thinking, well, we could have some retail, a restaurant or something on the bottom floor, office on second. We thought maybe we'll put an apartment up on the third floor. And then Brad says, oh, have you seen these rooftop bars that they've got in Minneapolis and Chicago? It'd be super cool to have a bar up there on top. So the building started really small, and then it just grew over the 8 years of talking about it.
Yeah.
And we finally realized that that project was going to take too long for us, and we were growing and needed the office space sooner. And you follow smart people. And I saw, just as soon as I was realizing that, the announcement came out that Zinberger was coming to downtown Gilbert. It was still pretty new.
Yeah.
That area wasn't really blossoming
I
yet.
remember years ago.
And I was like, okay, if Sam is putting his dollars down there in downtown Gilbert, then it's good enough for me.
Yeah.
This guy knows what he's doing. And so we said, let's go see if there's a lot for sale. And went and ate at Joyride was open at the time, because Postino and Joyride were leaders in coming in down there. Sitting at Joyride, looked across the street, and I said, there's a lot. And we were both like, was that there before? You know, I don't know. It was completely empty. And we bought the lot, tied it up. Crazy just getting through that. Took about, I think we bought it in 2014, and we just moved in. So about 3.5 years of the full development, funding, all of that phase to get into the space.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do like to build things.
Well, genetic again,
Thank
right?
you, Christian King. Yes.
So, okay, and then from there, let's talk about Thrive, because I know that you're really passionate about that. I know your partner is your daughter.
She's very passionate.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Thrive. Can you explain it and where you guys are going with Thrive?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had the building thinking it was just going to be 2 stories, rooftop bar up on the top. And I can't remember the day that I thought about a women's co-working space. I believe, I'm probably read about, there's one in New York that was designed for women. And I had always kind of thought, man, you know, you meet women and they don't have the confidence sometimes they need. Just grab it. Let's go, ladies.
Going back to your story earlier, like you were talking about when you came back into the workforce.
That's it, exactly. And so then you see, and so women in business are, we're part of the workforce and we're out there earning, but we're not taking leadership roles. And we make different choices, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And I've written about a lot of that. So I had read about this space in New York, and I thought, all right, I know about co-working, it's kind of boring for me, but if there's a women's co-working and it can be a place for them to come and have a community and not be so afraid and get some help, and maybe that would be an incredible thing to do. So my daughter, Braylon, was down at U of A in Tucson, and she found a job at a co-working space and loved the business and was so excited about it. So she worked in co-working for a couple of years while she was in college. And I pitched this idea to her and said, timing-wise, what if I open a space, but I don't have time to run it, I don't know the business, and you run it? And she said, all right, I can do that. And in the planning phases, we actually had a couple battles. She brought to me, it's like, why does it need to be all women? And we sat again over beers at 12 West and battled that out. And she is all about it now. And she has really caught the vision, and she sees it, and the energy that's up there is incredible. And we have stories of women just coming to tears when they talk about, I was working at home by myself and I was lonely and I wasn't productive, and I walked into the space and it was just like, oh, this feels so good, and how encouraged they are. And I go up there and I'm just like, I can't believe what this is doing for a lot of younger women, all ages, but a lot of younger ones that are at that point in their life where they're launching out.
You offer not only co-working space, but classes, development opportunities. Can you talk a little bit more?
Yeah, we're working. The classes are rough, but that is part of the vision. And they've done things like embroidery classes, and I'm like, Braylon, that's not what I was thinking. She goes, no, you don't understand. It's still about interacting and community and something to unwind. They've built vision boards. They go work out together. They go spin. But yes, we are also then bringing in and working to build out a curriculum of where it's classes to help you in networking opportunities and things like that.
So I know it was one of the things you wanted to offer any female listeners of Relentless Mentality an offer. So I wanted to give you the opportunity for you and Braylon to present that. And I know Shana will put it across the screen as well. But
wonderful. Yes, we would like to offer any of the listeners of today's podcast to come and work for free for a week at Thrive. Just drop in and check it out. So all you have to do is contact, it's thriveaz.com. All the contact information is on there, and let Braylon know that you're a listener of Relentless Mentality. Did I get that right?
Yes.
And we'd be glad to have you for a week just to try it out. We also have conference room space that you can rent. We've got event space up there, so there's a east-facing rooftop patio that's amazing.
Beautiful.
So whether or not you're in the East Valley, you may want to come out there and just check it out anyway. We'd love to have you.
Okay, so I've seen Thrive, and I think your designer and your vision you guys put together is an amazing space. Your whole office is amazing, and you have a restaurant on the first floor too, right?
Yeah, we do.
What's the restaurant?
The Brass Tap.
Brass Tap.
Yeah.
That's where you guys
That's
are having
my love
beers
of
now.
beer.
Yeah.
Yes, it's 72 beers.
So I want to ask a couple more questions about your mindset, and then we'll get to the final lightning round questions. But what was the aha moment for you so far in business?
I think I've already told you, and it was that 2010.
Okay.
And the upside of that story, I told you sort of the emotional side of Brad going through what he did, but the upside was that we were just watching people lose their jobs left and right. We were watching everybody that worked for us, knew people that were losing their jobs, and companies in our plaza that were just going out of business, and it was really a tough time. And I think my moment of feeling like I might know what I'm doing was that year, in the way that I was able to plan and cut things and really be frugal and fiscally responsible. We didn't lose any people. We didn't have to do any layoffs. We still gave raises. We do 5% raises almost across the board every year, and we still did all that. And I got through that year, and we had a couple of our really best years ever following that. And so it wasn't a moment, I don't think, as much as just I felt hugely successful, and it was difficult, and I was able to do it. And I think a few years before that, I would have thought, that's going to be, I don't know if I have the guts and the strength to do that.
Okay. So if you know what you would know today, what would you do differently?
I love that question, and I'm going to be really bold and say nothing.
Okay.
Because I'm a Jeff Bezos fan. You learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And so if you knew what you knew and you could just sort of fix everything, I don't know what kind of person you'd be at the end of the day if there were no roadblocks and there was nothing, if you didn't make mistakes trying to do something well. So I don't have this moment where I'm like, I wish I had done that differently.
Okay, so I'll ask it a little different and
Okay.
it's more pointed too. So
Okay.
there is a young woman or a woman in business that wants to be a CEO or is thinking about going back into the workforce. What advice would you give them based off of what the things you've learned?
Learn something from absolutely every job you're in. Every job isn't going to be perfect, and it may not be your dream job. But I can point to something that I learned at every single job that I did, even ones that seemed weird. I learned finance working in a church office because one of the guys there was an accountant, a CPA, and I learned all about a chart of accounts from him.
Okay.
And so I think just realizing that you don't have to land on this perfect job. There's these stair steps that get you there. And even if you're in a job and you just think it's terrible, you're bored, you don't like it, you could find somebody or something to learn at and then that shapes and makes you who you are and gets you ready.
Okay. Fair enough. You ready for the lightning round, Lynne? Who inspires you?
My mom.
What motivates you now?
If I knew the answer to that,
Okay.
there's a self-motivation that I feel like resides within me, and maybe it's genetics. I don't know. I wish I could figure it out, but I don't know.
Okay.
But I am motivated.
Okay. And other than you going to Mexico this weekend, what's next for you in your world?
I am hoping to really grow our business in the next couple of years and really make some changes, whether that's mergers, acquisitions, you know about some of that. And so I think there's some pretty cool stuff ahead for TicketForce.
Awesome. Lynne, thank you so much
Thank
for coming
you.
on.
This is fun.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw today, please subscribe in the links below. And remember, never to quit, always be relentless.